Now this is a piece of material I've only just had made, which I think is really a lovely piece. For usually the children have it after they've had the cabinet and they know all the figures well. In the schoolroom, I would have each figure in a little box with the picture on the lid of the figure that's in the box. But I must get some more boxes, but coming in the plane I couldn't bring all those boxes, and I have mine in envelopes. But they're much nicer when they're in boxes. You have all the straight-sided figures that you find in the cabinet. That's all the regular straight-sided figures, cut out in plastic in at least 2 colors. And the figures all have at least one side in common. So if you have a triangle, one of the sides is the same length as one side in all the other figures. Now your box would have a picture of the figure. You will see on the top of the box. Oh. Who knows that one? It's one of the ones I gave you the definition this morning. And don't tell me it's an Indian arrowhead. The trapezoid. No sides parallel. We have, don't need to have all the polygons. I have the pentagon, the hexagon, the octagon, and the dodecan, D-O-D-E. That's a 12-sided one. And that is one that the Islamic people made rather nice designs with. Now, you would take one a box to the child's table. A square would be a good one to begin with, or the equilateral triangle. See? Square, I think, probably the best. So cut out these squares in 2 colors. And the child you're going to show the child how to tessellate. Do you know that word? The noun is tessellation. It means to cover an area without leaving gaps and without overlapping. You see, this floor is tessellated. It's covered with squares. There are no gaps between them and they don't overlap. And with these squares in 2 colors, there are a number of different designs that can be made. And the simplest one is just to alternate the colors. Start as simply as possible. Once your child understands what to do, see, you can go on covering as large an area as is possible with the number of squares he has. You find that the squares will tessellate. And what is more, any side of any square will match the side of any other side of any other square. So that makes a pattern that is very common, isn't it? But there are many other patterns he can work out with squares as well. equilateral triangles. And before I can match these, I have to rotate this one. As I can tessellate with these, you see this one has to be rotated. It's turned. And I find there are many different patterns I can make with these. Again, I can go on. Pattern I could go on forever, see, and cover an area like that. A variation. I can do it as a long line or cover a large area, which I like. But for them again, there are many patterns I can make by just using the equilateral triangle. So it looks rather nice if I there, my pattern fills the rhombus, doesn't it? Now, the children will help themselves to any shape they like and try to see if they can tessellate with that shape.
How many shapes do you have? How many did you have made?
We have each of these regular straight-sided figures.
And how many little pieces?
Oh, they vary a little bit, one to my slot. There are more of the equilateral triangles and squares than there are of the dodecans. It's more satisfactory if you have plenty. Where my other hexagons are, there should be no. But we find that the hexagon will tessellate. It's one of the ones which again is very commonly used in tiling. It's makes one of the prettiest patchwork quilts, doesn't it? So the hexagon will tessellate, the octagon, no, it leaves spaces. No. But a child tessellating with the octagons like that nearly always sees for himself that the space left is a square. And so most children, without consulting you, go and find the squares. And find they can make oh, isn't that nice? Yes, the octagons and squares. I can combine shapes to make tessellation. But he finds that the pentagons won't tessellate on their own. In fact, the hexagon is the only one that will. Let's try the dodecan. Oh, you get an equilateral triangle. Yes, exactly fits. That's rather nice, isn't it? I think it might look nice if I continued and put them all the way around the edge. That's really good. So, I begin to really get an eye for pattern and design. I begin to understand something about symmetry, rotation, and so on. I put them all around these sides. But I might also find that my dodecans fitted together in a different way. They do, but you see, I don't have a shape like that, do I? Like a four-pointed star. So if I was a fairly bright child, I might know the oh yes, now if I have us one of those squares. Ah, that's good. Isn't it? I might add to it. So, this is of course, this is one way in which we use the geometrical shapes, you see, is to create these very beautiful patterns. As I told you before, the great people for this were the Islamic people.
When a child makes a pattern like that on the top, you wouldn't say, doesn't it look like a flower?
No, you wouldn't. No. Why worry? I mean, if he likes to think it looks like one, but I think you then detract from the understanding of shape. Because there is no flower that's made with squares and triangles and dodecans. It's you who's seeing that it looks like a flower. You don't want to invent imagery for the children. All right if they can make their own imagery. And once you begin that sort of, it's a kind of fantasy. Once you begin doing that, then they don't notice the geometry.
It's very confusing.
Yes, you're leading them off into something else. I think that's where the grown-ups make a big mistake.
It seems logical to say that, though.
Yes, but you don't have to put your vision onto them. Let them. What you are wanting them to do is find out, understand a great deal of geometry from this. And pattern has got a geometrical, regular pattern always has a geometrical basis.
We use the word tessellation.
Of course we do. You would say you've made a tessellation. Any new words that you can give them, well, you more the better. Because they are adding words to their vocabulary very easily at this stage.
Do you have circles?
No, straight-sided figures. You see, you can't tessellate with a curved figure, can you?
Right, I was wondering how that
That's why I did say the straight-sided figures after the cabinet.
Did you choose those colors for any particular reason?
No, I didn't. I chose other colours, and they made them in the other colours first. And then the second batch, without asking me, they made these colours, which I don't like as much. So I have to put up with them.
What colors were yours?
When they make another lot, I'll change it again.
What colors did you choose?
The first ones were made in blue and white. But I would like more than a number of figures. I'd like the set ready to be about twice the number for the Dodecan and the others. And I'd rather like them in 3 colours.
Was there, what size, did you designate a size?
Hey, don't worry about size. Just all you need to know is that they all have one side in common. You see, so that you can combine them all. They have at least one side. When you get to the other triangles, you see, an isosceles triangle would have 2 sides like this. The scalene would only have one side. And then here is our famous trapezoid. See? And you can see if you can tessellate with that. Well, lead you to make some discoveries. But look, the child learns a great deal in doing this. Oh yes, you get fascinated with it.
Perhaps you've already talked about this. I didn't get it. At this point, it doesn't matter if what the colors are, because you don't have to isolate the shapes because they've already got the colors.
Oh, no, they've had that in the material. Now this is different. They're learning to tessellate, and it would be very boring if it were all one colour, like this floor. You don't even know why they bothered to have it in squares. You just have a nice long strip, you see. But when you come to creating designs, you do need the different colours.
Do they have to know the name of the shape before they look at them?
You don't have to, but they would, I think, before they came to this, know the names of the shapes in the cabinet. And you would, if they didn't recognize this, you would show them why it was a trapezoid, and you could give the name Dodecan. I mean, we are always wanting to add language as much as we can, you see. So we take every opportunity to.
Joe, you're something who has gone through the cabinet material, wanted to do it, would you let them?
I don't think one would stop them, you know. And very often they try and they play about with it and they find they're not very successful because they're not mature enough, and then they leave it. But they might find that they can manage the triangles and squares, so no harm done. So. Another thing that children do sometimes, like transferring their design to paper. And you see, I would never allow them to draw around the cabinet, and you must not draw around those figures, because you get ink or pencil on the edges, and you can't clean it off properly without spoiling them. But these are washable, being in plastic, and so they can draw around them. So they can transfer their patterns to paper and colour them if they want a permanent record, or to take something home. Many children do. If you wanted them to make a patchwork ball, then the pentagon they could use the pentagon as the net to cut their shapes. So it would be a small ball, or the hexagon they could use for patchwork, by drawing round it to make quite a good net. Some of them, I had a little girl who just enjoyed drawing round them and writing the name under each other. You know, Children think of things themselves to do. But they all get fascinated with the pattern. All right then. So you understand something of the progression we get. So now use these shapes to make beautiful things for a very long time. And of course the great example here is the way you use them to create patchwork quilts. You see, in the beginning there was this real necessity. England was a long way away, you didn't manufacture cloth for yourself, and you had to buy everything from England for a time. And therefore every little bit of cloth was valuable. And of course it was a craft that was used in England, so you knew how to do it when you came here, but you had a greater necessity. And then when you travelled west, everything came out here in the covered wagons, you were a long way away from supplies, so you had to reuse all your bits of material. When a garment really wore out, you would use the better bits to patch together to make a quilt or something, you see. And in the long winters, when it was snow as you're getting in this country now, the women used to sit and sew the patches and make a quilt. And in the spring when the snow melted, as you know, they used to meet each other, you know, and have parties in which they all did the quilting together, and so made covers for the beds. And because material was so scarce, the backing for the quilts was always made. You bought sugar and flour and commodities in these big quantities, and so you washed the sacks out. It was a very, very strong material, and you use that for the backing of your quilts. And I've seen many quilts which said so and so sugar or something on the back. Perhaps some of you have them. And then I believe there was a firm a little later, I think in California, that thought of printing these calico bags with a floral pattern, so that everybody would buy their bags instead of the plain ones. You see. And then from being this necessity, when you got money and leisure, the well-to-do women began to create beautiful quilts. They could buy the materials went together.